I'm a 27-year-old guy. Sleep has never been my best friend. For years, I've suffered from multiple sleeping disorders, more than I can count. From night terrors and insomnia to sleepwalking, the list goes on and on. I've tried medication, but it barely works for a few days before I'm plagued by another ailment. The reason for this? Past trauma that I can't even begin to unpack. But sometimes, I get a few days where I sleep normally. No dreams or anything. Just sleep. When I met Jeff, I was having some of those days. I had recently switched my medication, and I felt that this time, it was gonna work. I told him that I had trouble sleeping sometimes, but I didn't go into too much detail because I hated anyone thinking that I was weak. When I moved into my apartment, but I had a very brief dating history, I just couldn't stay with anyone for long because my depression and sleep problems made me withdraw, so I'd been single for many years. We got along well, but didn't get super close for those weeks because he worked till late. He was a doctor at a nearby hospital. That meant his shifts were irregular, and he sometimes came home while I was sleeping. I worked as a freelancer, choosing to do my work at night because that's when I was trying to keep my thoughts from driving me mad, and sorting through data kept me from losing my mind when thoughts got too much. One night, I couldn't concentrate no matter what. I was eerily aware of the fact that I was alone in my apartment. My mind played tricks on me, making me think of anything that could happen to me while I was alone. Various thoughts ran through my head, along the lines of, an axe murderer could come and end me at any time. Did I lock all the doors? What time was Jeff coming back from the hospital? I couldn't concentrate on my work, and I got more and more frustrated. I went to my bed, and I lay there for a while, but I didn't take my second dose of the pills, because they were starting to give me the side effects. I was scared of falling asleep, because what if someone came in and did something to me? Then somehow, I fell asleep, and I found myself in a time from long ago. And I was reliving something I didn't want to, so I ran, and I just remember running. Then a voice broke through to me. It's okay, no one's gonna hurt you. Then I had a dreamless sleep. When I woke up, I felt really strange. Well rested, but as if something was wrong. Everything felt different. From the side that I was sleeping on to the sheets on the bed that I was sleeping on. I turned to the side and I noticed that I was sleeping next to someone. I panicked. I couldn't see the person's face. Only dark hair. The first thing that I thought of was that I had been kidnapped, so my anxiety went through the roof. I screamed, and the person beside me jumped up. That was when I saw that the person I had been in bed with was Jeff. How'd I end up here? Did I sleepwalk? I asked him. Yes. Last night, you came in here. You were mumbling something about a person hurting you. I thought you were awake, and I tried to talk to you, thinking there was an intruder in the house, but then I noticed that you couldn't see me. So I figured that you were sleepwalking, he said. How'd I end up in your bed? I asked him. You got even more scared, and you were panicking. I tried to hold you and tell you that everything was okay. Then you collapsed in my arms. I let you sleep next to me so I could keep an eye on you if you sleptwalk again, he said. I felt so embarrassed that he had to see me like that. I'm sorry if I made you uncomfortable, I said. It's okay. You told me you had sleeping problems, but I didn't know it was this bad. Have you tried getting help? He asked. Yes. I've been to doctors and have gotten medication, but nothing works for long, I said. Maybe it's psychological, he suggested. I don't do therapy, I said. I didn't want to sit while someone unpacked my past trauma. I didn't want to tell anyone. I get it, really. Sorry for intruding, he said. No, I'm sorry for snapping. Is it strange that after I heard your voice, I stopped experiencing the nightmare and I had a dreamless sleep? And I slept peacefully for the first time in ages, I confessed. Really? He asked, eyes wide in wonder. Yes, actually. I didn't have any nightmares last night, I said. He was silent for a while, deep in thought. Then he looked at me as if he had just gotten a brilliant idea. Did you take your pills? He asked. Earlier on, but they didn't work, and they gave me anxiety. I usually have 2 doses per night, I said. How'd you like to share my bed with me? Until you get the pills issue sorted, or for as long as you want? We can even put a pillow between us if that'll make you feel more comfortable, he suggested. He did make a lot of sense. When I had been with him, the sleepwalking had ended, and I had a peaceful night. Okay, I agreed, but only on one condition, he said. Anything, I smiled. You have to consider going to therapy. I don't know what troubles you, but you need professional help, he smiled grimly. I understand. I'll consider it. That's all I need to hear, he said, giving me a hug. It took me by surprise, but I liked it. So then, we fell into a routine. Whether he went to work or not, I would go into his room when I wanted to sleep. The only time I didn't sleep in his room was when he had a night shift. Then I would battle with whichever sleeping problem decided to plague me. Sometimes I got lucky, and it was just insomnia. I didn't mind insomnia as much, for the night was when I felt the most alive. Then I would text him as he was working. As I got to know him, I liked him even more. He was very goofy, and very open. He was genuinely nice, and he was always checking up on me to make sure that I was alright. Eventually, I decided that I was going to get a therapist because Jeff had done all he could to help me, and I had promised him that I would try. I found a person who was highly recommended by one of my friends called Sharon. I started to attend weekly sessions, and they helped a bit, but I still couldn't open up as much as I wanted to. When Jeff and I were in bed, we didn't just sleep. I found that I was very affectionate with him. Sometimes I couldn't sleep, so I just cuddled with him until he fell asleep. He looked so peaceful, and I felt safer than I had in years. I think it was safe to say that I was growing attached to him. On his off days, we usually went for walks together in the park. Before I met him, I didn't like anything that had to do with fitness. But he was a doctor, so he was all about fitness and health. So I got into it because I wanted every excuse to hang out with him as much as I could. I couldn't remember the last time that I had met someone who had made me feel so peaceful. Being around him kept me sane. During our walks, we would talk about a lot of things. Soon, he knew me better than most of my friends did, and I was starting to feel a certain way about him. I was always excited to see him. In all of my years, I'd never been so caught up in a human before. As the months passed, I started to develop something for him. I had always thought of myself as straight, but the few relationships that I had in the past with girls were loveless. I found it hard to connect with my past girlfriends. I would only get with someone, but I couldn't. So I had given up and stopped daring, figuring that I just couldn't love. But Jeff made me feel something that I had never felt before. He made me question whether I'd been looking for love with the wrong people in the past. But I was scared of opening up about my feelings to him, and with my past looming over me, I didn't feel as if I would be able to truly give myself as I was. One night, he was home early because it had been a slightly slower day at the hospital. "Hey you, I thought you'd be home later on," I said. "Lucky for you, you have me for the rest of the day," he winked. I chuckled and hugged him. "What are your plans? Want to go for a walk?" I asked. "Nah, it's too cold. Let's watch a movie," he said. Okay," I said. We put on a movie and watched it while very close to each other with a blanket. I fell asleep, and I woke up to see him staring at me. "Hey, what's wrong?" I asked him. "You were talking," he said. "What was I saying?" I asked. "You said someone should stop, and that you would tell your parents," he said. I went blank. Everything crashed into me at the same time, and I started crying. It had been eating me up on the inside, and I'd kept it at bay, from my therapist, my family, and from Jeff. Suddenly, I felt like I couldn't hold it in anymore. I needed to tell him. Warning, this may be triggering. When I was 12 years old, my mother had a friend who came to visit us, a rich woman. My parents respected her a lot, and she stayed with us for several months. She liked me a lot. I stopped. "Hey, I'm here," he reassured me. She gave me gifts, new clothes, toys. I trusted her. And then one night, she came into my room. I continued. "What did she do?" he asked. I couldn't bring myself to say anything else because it felt like I was. "You don't have to say anything else. I understand. You've held on to so much pain for such a long time," he said, cupping my cheek. I looked down. I didn't want him to see my pain. "See? I'm broken," I said. "Fuck that. You're not broken, not in my eyes. You're strong. But you don't have to be strong all the time. Let me be your strength," he said. I was silent. I looked into his eyes and I knew. I could trust him. I could let go. Then I pulled him closer and I kissed him, and it felt right. I'd been wanting to kiss him for weeks now, but I never had the courage. He kissed me back tenderly, tracing his fingers on my heart that was beating so fast, a heart that was alive for the first time ever. I kissed him until I couldn't breathe anymore. I needed him, his whole being. When we finally broke apart because of the lack of oxygen, we were silent for a long time. We just looked at each other. I knew as I looked at him that he liked me too. "Thank you," I said as I kissed him once more. "I'll always be here," he said. And from that day on, he was with me through everything. I eventually opened up to my therapist about what had happened to me. She really helped me come to terms with what had happened, but it wasn't an instant cure. It would take ages for me to heal, but it was a step forward in the right direction. Things with Jeff felt right. We continued sleeping in the same room, and I eventually started having a normal sleeping pattern. Since he worked odd hours most of the time, we took every moment that we could to spend time with each other. But unfortunately, we hadn't had a proper date yet. Then one day, he surprised me by telling me that he had an off day, which was rare during the holidays. I had accepted the fact that I was going to get a full day with him on Christmas and New Year's. "Where do you want to go?" he asked me. "Paris," I grinned. "I'm a doctor, not a billionaire," he chuckled. But I was very excited about our first date. I quickly went to get ready. Knowing him, it was probably going to be somewhere classy, so I had to dress well. So I wore a semi-formal outfit. When he saw me, he beamed and pulled me in for a kiss. "Are you trying to make it hard for me to leave the house, Charles?" he smirked. "Maybe, Jeff." I winked as I pulled away from him and made my way to the door. I knew that he was looking at me as I walked away because he whistled. I couldn't help but laugh. When we got to the restaurant, it was very elegant and classy, his kind of thing. We were seated, and we had "The fact that you're here, with me," he smiled. "Me too. I was so shy to even make a move for weeks," I said. "Damn, me too. But yeah, I really like you. You're kind, honest, and wickedly smart. Every part of you is perfect," he said. "What is it, babe?" I asked him. I thought maybe it was too soon, but I can't wait anymore. "I need you to know. I have fallen deeply in love with you," he said. My heart stopped. I hadn't been expecting those myself, and you rekindled me. "I love you. You're my life," I said. And those words were the truth. I'd never fallen in love before in my life, nor did I have any idea what it felt like. But I knew that love was wanting to be with someone, to hold them for the whole day, to protect them and make them smile. And I felt all that and more from my Jeff. I hadn't bumped into him. I walked into him when my past was haunting me, and he had seen me. I held his hand and I smiled. For the first time in my life, I didn't have second thoughts about someone. I wanted to be in his arms for as long as fate would permit me. The food arrived as we were looking into each other's eyes. It looked appetizing, and I was about to dig in when he held a fork with some food in front of me. "And then?" I asked. "I want to bring." The flavors perfectly mingled with each other. "Gosh, I need more," I said as I dug into the rest of the food. He chuckled as I ate the food without stopping. "You're so cute. I should take you to this place more often." "Finally, I found something that you like to eat," he smirked. He was right. I was a picky eater and was not easily impressed. For our next date night, I took a break to say to him, "Yes, my love," he said. Finding him at the lowest point in my life was the best thing that happened to me. I thought that I was destined to be alone, forever, with only my demons to keep me company. But love had other plans. The end.